place and I'm not using my usual setup. So I don't have my microphone, my headphones. I'm doing everything with my laptop. So probably the quality is not very good. Also, I'm using the internet connection of my mobile phone. So, well, hopefully it's enough for this live streaming. But today is again, I'm not in my usual place. So I would like to give you some updates about DaDaBIK, but I will do it at the end of the live streaming because first I want to go straight to the point with the topic of this live. My starting idea was to talk about the most frequent questions, pre-sale questions I receive, like the top 5 or the top 10, something like that. But then I realized that there is one question that is in the top, probably in the top 5, that is very interesting to discuss. I often receive questions related to the migration of a legacy application to a web application using DaDaBIK. So typically, the kind of messages we receive are like, okay, I have this application, legacy application we created using Microsoft Access or Visual Basic or Filemaker, something like that. Many years ago, we would like to move this application to the cloud. We want, or well, more in general, to a web application, to the web. Can we use DaDaBIK for that? That's a very frequent question. And again, it's interesting to discuss it because, I mean, most of the time, the answer is yes. However, the answer I tend to give when I receive this question is it depends, because there are a few things, a few assumptions that maybe you made that need discussions. So, well, this is the topic of the live. So basically, we are going to see which are the elements I usually evaluate to see how easy is the migration of a legacy application to a web cloud application using DaDaBIK. All right. So the very first thing you should do is checking the requirements, the DaDaBIK requirements. If you go to the website DaDaBIK.com, then documentation requirements, there is a chapter telling you exactly what you need to run DaDaBIK. The requirements are pretty low, so probably you're fine with that, but you have to check it out. So, generally speaking, DaDaBIK is an application created, developed in PHP and JavaScript. PHP runs basically almost everywhere, so probably you don't have problems with that. The other important thing you need is a database. And the DBMS that currently DaDaBIK supports are 4: MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, and Microsoft SQL Server. These are very popular DBMS, so probably one of these, I mean, you are fine at least with one of them. But again, if in case you want to build your cloud application on a different DBMS, I'm not talking about your legacy application. Your legacy application could also use, for example, Access, as I mentioned before. I'm talking about the final application, the one you will use at the end of the process. If, for example, you want to use, I don't know, an Oracle database or a MongoDB database, well, currently that is not supported, for example. If you're watching this live in a few months or years, maybe double check, because maybe now we are supporting also different databases, DBMS, but currently these are the 4 ones. So first, check the requirements. Second, most important thing, how you should describe when you write us to, describe your legacy application, how you should describe the application itself. Quite often, I receive a very detailed description of legacy applications, something like, okay, we have an orders management system we created using Access. These are the screenshots of all the screens. We have this form. When you click this button, this happens. So very, very detailed with all the workflow. Analyzing in such details an application and telling you for each little feature of your old application, how this part will result in a DaDaBIK application would require hours of analysis. So this isn't the good approach to describe your application. You should try to summarize your application according to 4 points. Okay, 4 points. Your data, your user input interface, your user output interface, and your automations. These are the 4 things that I think are the main ones we can use to describe a typical application. In particular, an application based on data and in particular, internal tools, what we call internal tools. So all the software, all the applications we use to manage the organization's workflow. Okay. So first element, the data. So here you should first think about where you store your data. Is your data in a database? And if yes, is the DBMS one of the 4 DBMS I mentioned before, MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQL Server, SQLite? Because if it is, it's the best. You are in the best position. It's very easy. I mean, the migration is, at least from the data point of view, is very easy. If your data is in a database, but not one of the 4 DBMS I mentioned, first you have to migrate the data. So maybe you're on an Oracle database, you have to migrate the data on MySQL, for example. Remember that, well, and that's one thing. If your data is on a simple Excel file or CSV file, it works. It works anyway, because you can install DaDaBIK starting from an Excel or CSV file. And DaDaBIK will create in MySQL or in one of the other DBMS we mentioned, the data structures representing, the structures, basically the sheets that you have in your Excel file. And this is also a good strategy. So starting from an Excel file, if you want to migrate, for example, from Access, we cannot start the installation of DaDaBIK directly from an Access file, but if you export your data from Access to Excel, then you can start your DaDaBIK installation from the resulting Excel file. Okay. So this was about the data. If your data is stored in a database, maybe you should also consider how your data is, how your database is normalized. For example, again, let's say you have an orders management system. You have an orders table. Do you store the information about the customer in the order, like first name, last name, something like that, directly in the orders table, or you use an external customers table and you store the ID of the customer in the order? So the second option is, let's say, more normalized, and it's a better approach. DaDaBIK can work with normalized or not normalized databases. However, since you are migrating to a new application, maybe you can, that's a good chance to also try to normalize the schema of your database. Okay, that was about the data. Second element, we said input user interface. So what you use what the users of your application use to input the data. So here I have a CRM, a test CRM application I'm creating with DaDaBIK, and it's basically, if you look at our YouTube channel, we are developing this application using screencasting the development. So now at part 4, I think. So this is what we got so far. And I was discussing user interface. So if your input interface is a classic form like this one, so we have very classic HTML forms we use when we have to input data in classic interface. If your user interface is something like that, you are totally fine. Consider that you have a certain degree of personalization when you develop with DaDaBIK these forms. This is something you can do without any coding. So basically, DaDaBIK creates these forms according to your database schema, and then you can personalize, customize the form, like the position of the elements. You can add these separators. You can decide what kind of input element you should use for each field. Many things. But this is the approach we use, and also the approach that you also probably use in your application for as input interface. So normally this part is fine. Let's talk about the output user interface. So when we so here we basically input data in our system with these forms, right? Then we have some structures we use to present information, so the output to our users. And in DaDaBIK we have results grid, this kind of structures, results grid. We have charts. So for example, here, let's say I create a bar chart, but I have other kind of charts, for example. We have P table. This is another example of output space. We can export the data to CSV. We can create a PDF starting from our data. We have dashboards. So we can create pages and embed in pages results grid, again, graphs, pivot table, and all the things I mentioned before. Well, not PDF and CSV file, all the other ones, okay? So these are the output you can get in DaDaBIK without coding. So if your application, your legacy application, or the application you would like to build uses these interfaces, you are fine. But let's say, for example, you want to show your data on a map, okay? For example, using Google Maps. Well, this is something that DaDaBIK doesn't have built in. Does this mean that you cannot create in a DaDaBIK application a page that uses Google Maps? No, you can do it. However, you need some code. And this is, a crucial topic to discuss. So, well, most of the time, I would say that any typical internal tool, legacy internal tool, can be converted into a DaDaBIK application. The thing is, first, understand if you need to do, if you need some compromises in terms of interfaces. Again, maybe you decide not to use maps and to show the data on a grid, on a tabular grid, for example. And second, how much code you want to write. Because there are many things that in DaDaBIK you can get without any coding. So these are the things that I showed you so far. So the results grid, the forms, the charts, the pivot table, and even this dashboard is something you can create without any coding. Okay. However, if you want to, if it's okay for you to write some code, you can do more. For example, let's come back to the Google Maps example. We don't have this structure built in DaDaBIK. However, in DaDaBIK custom page, and right there, the code I need to show a Google Map. Also, querying the data I have in my DaDaBIK application. Okay, so Yes, you should consider, what we have built in, and if there is something that DaDaBIK doesn't provide built in, if it's okay for you to write some code. All right. I think it's very useful from this point of view. The video I published a few weeks ago, the title is the no code versus low code false dichotomy. It explained very well that in DaDaBIK, DaDaBIK is a no code, low code platform. Why we use both the terms? Because using a no-code approach, you can reach a certain point of development. So there are many elements, many structures that are already built in. For everything else, you need to write some code. The thing is that DaDaBIK is always evolving. So what is no code right now, November 2022? Well, the set of no code things we provide with DaDaBIK in November 2022 is different with respect to what we will this month. Maybe in 6 months, and it's like that. Maybe in 6 months we will have a Google Maps as a built-in module. Okay, with that. And the fourth element, we said data. Where is your data? What kind of use? What kind of user input interface? What kind of input interface you use? Your automations. What is an automation? Well, it's a generic term we can use to refer to things that to operations, for example, we have to do on our database, or more in general, when something happens, typically. So in DaDaBIK, you have built in the classic CRUD operations. Okay, so for example, we have a customer table here. We can insert a new customer. We can edit the customer. We can delete the customer. We search for customers. So CRUD, create, update, delete. Apart from operations, you might need other operations that you need to run, for example, when something happens, when a particular event happens, or periodically, for example, once a day at night. These are automations. Again, in DaDaBIK are some automations that are built in the platform. So, for example, if you want to send an email to a particular address every time a new record is inserted in DaDaBIK, that's something that you can do just configuring something in DaDaBIK without writing any code. Okay, that's built in, no code. If you need something more complex, maybe you need some coding. In DaDaBIK, we handle automations using, I would say, two complex automations using, I would say, two tools. The first one is the operational hooks. The second one, the custom buttons. With operational hooks, so for example, you can say something like, when, I don't know, let me think. So when a new order is inserted by a staff member belonging to a particular group, if the order value amount is higher than 10,000 euros, then I don't know, send an email to this person and I don't know, write a record in a table, and also make a call to this API. Okay, this is, you know, a quite complex automation. You can implement it in DaDaBIK. You have to write the code. I mean, in DaDaBIK you configure the event. In this case, it's a so-called after insert hook on the orders table. You configure the event, and then you tell DaDaBIK, when this event occurs, execute this function. And then you write in PHP your function. All right? Custom buttons, that's another way. We can also consider custom buttons as an automation tool, because basically you can add buttons. Let me see if we have something here. Okay, convert this prospect. This is a custom button. This is a custom button. When you click some code, PHP or JavaScript is executed. So with buttons and operational hooks, you can really implement, mimic your organization's workflow. You can automate your organization's workflow. Let me drink some water, sorry. All right, and yeah, these are basically the four elements you should consider. Maybe it's also useful for you to, you know, summarize your application and the things that you should mention when, if and when you want to write us to ask if your legacy application can be easily migrated to DaDaBIK. You can certainly you know, contact us for that, dadabik.com, then you choose contacts and you send us a message with these details if you want. Okay, this was pretty much what I wanted to tell you about migration. Let me check, I have some notes, let me check if there was something more I wanted to tell you. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. All right, so that's it for this part. Now I would like to give you also a little update on DaDaBIK. I'm working on it. The idea, as I told you, was to release as next version the major release in 2023, DaDaBIK 12. So my idea was to keep DaDaBIK 11.7 as the last 11 release, but I've changed my mind, basically. Because in these weeks, I've been, during these weeks, I've been working on an application I'm creating with DaDaBIK for a customer. And by the way, it's an orders management system. And for this application, I needed to, to make the application, the development of the application easier, I needed to add some little features to DaDaBIK. So since I added this feature, I just want to release these features in a new minor release, DaDaBIK 11.8. So maybe in a few weeks I will do it. Just a preview about the features. There are little features, but I think they are very useful. In particular, I will mention just one of them. So I give you some background. So in this system, I had this orders table that the staff of a company use to see the list of the orders the company receives. We use the same table for the customers. I mean, also the customers can log in the system, and each customer can see their own orders. Okay, so same table, both staff and customers the table. Of course, we have some row filtering criteria, so each can only see the orders they created, while the staff members can see everything. There was one little thing, however. The thing is that in the DaDaBIK application interface, the staff members should see as a name of the page all orders, while the customers should see my orders. This is a very little thing, but it will with DaDaBIK. So the only solution was to create a view based on the orders table, a view for the customer, and use that view instead of the table. So at that point, I can change the name of the page, and I'm pretty flexible. However, I mean, why I should duplicate all the permissions, the form configurations, and so on and so forth. So I decided to add this little thing so that now you can define a page name according to the group the current logged in user belongs to. So in the pages section in the admin area, for each page you can have a fixed name for the page, or you can add with a very simple syntax like group 1 column label 1, group 2 column label 2, and so on and so forth. So you define a different label for each group. This is one of the feature I will release with DaDaBIK 11.8. Again, probably in a few weeks. Okay, that's it, I guess. So if you have any questions, you can write in the chat or later. If you watch this video later, you can add comments. All right? Okay, so see you next time. Ciao.